President Sarkozy's UMP party, weighing in.
Where's
the moral error now? It's on the left wing, which usually voices so much criticism itself, but conducts itself in a way so different from its principles and values.
There's doubt in every quarter. It's hard to think that François Hollande didn't know about any of this, even while Jérôme Cahuzac was his budget minister, and it seems they had numerous discussions about the matter.
Now, Jean-François Copé was singled out by the same Mediapart news website that broke the Cahuzac affair over the opening of a bank account in the name of Copé's sister in Switzerland by a Franco-Lebanese middleman by the name of Ziad Taqieddine. This was a few months back, a story that included a photo of Copé cooling off in Taqieddine's private pool. Copé's sister, Isabelle, who happens to be one of Patricia Cahuzac's attorneys. So again, Thomas Guenole, you talk about how it's not just the left that's going to feel the ripple effects of all of this.
Well, there's something I was thinking about while listening at these reactions. In fact, what people have to understand is that it seems like we've got more and more corruption, but actually it's not the case. Historically speaking, you cannot even imagine the level of corruption of past republics. The Third Republic, for instance, the big scandal of Panama. All MPs, almost all MPs, French MPs, were corrupted in the same Panama scandal. So, in fact, what's happening is not that there is more and more corruption. There is more and more court corruption. It's a side effect of transparency and data circulating, thanks to the technological progress, in fact. So it's just an optical illusion.
Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, the Fourth Estate's accused of being slightly docile in this country by Anglo-Saxon hacks. Are things changing, as Thomas Guenole is saying?
I think, yes. I think you see Mediapart as becoming a bit like ProPublica in America. It's an investigative website. It was set up by a former Le Monde investigative reporter, Edouard Plenel. He was the one who broke the Greenpeace affair. If anybody remembers this, it's when the French Secret Service blew up a Greenpeace boat to try and prevent Greenpeace from objecting to French nuclear testing. This is under Mitterrand, a socialist president. So you've got that, which is very encouraging. And it's very true. I mean, I totally agree with Thomas Guenole. This country used to be much more corrupt. And you have a moment in which people think that what obtained in the past will still work. And that's the moment when everything comes out as a bit like sort of, fever at the end of an illness. But it's very true as well that we are slowly getting to be accountable in private life, in public life. There's nothing like, more recent scandals. The fact that all political parties went and got money out of large supermarket chains, for instance, that they got kickbacks from every large building contract in their municipality. All the mayors did that. I think there's a change precisely because people won't stand for it anymore, and also because it's easier to find out about it.
Alexander Blumrosen, do you feel as though the wider public is getting more of a look in at the rarefied air of the high and mighty in this country coming from America when you look at French politics today?
Oh, I think there is a lot more transparency today than there was even 10 years ago. There is less corruption. There is more enforcement of corruption, so that when, as Madame Moutet was saying, when there is corruption, it does come to the surface, it does get prosecuted, and it does become visible. And in that sense, I think it is more and more like the United States. But one thing that I find very troubling in this matter is not just that there's corruption, because one can see corruption all in many jurisdictions, many countries. But why is it that the process for creating the government, for naming the Minister of the Economy, didn't vet sufficiently Mr. Cahuzac? Now, in the United States, they have Senate confirmation hearings, and nothing gets by the Senate because it's led by the opposition that is in the Senate. And there is no such adversarial or opposition control or supervision of that appointment process. And that seems to create institutional instability for Mr. Hollande. We're going to be looking at 2 or 3 months of investigation. He's not going to be able to run his policies, his politics, and that shouldn't be the case. Whatever the outcome, Mr. Hollande should not have to deal with this. And I think there's an institutional problem in the creation of governments, in the lack of opposition supervision of the vetting process.
The cabinet answerable under the French constitution to Parliament. So should there be this vetting process? And does that exist in the UK?
In the UK, you have scandals, but they go straight away. I'm trying to think whether I think the party whips do the due diligence, and I would, you know, Monsieur Cahuzac was extremely well treated by the opposition because they respected him as being at least, you know, someone reasonable. He'd been in charge of the finance committee in the House. Everybody agreed, left and right, that he was extremely competent, and he was given. I think they would have given him a pass, and they didn't have the means of investigation that a committee has in America. We've seen various House and Senate investigations in France that were really sort of, you know, toothless. So, but I think, yes, due diligence now seems very obvious. You've got to, and in England, you've got the ruthless party system, the party machine, the party whips, as they're called, who will go and ferret it out of whatever candidate. And those who pass for various reasons, from the expenses scandal to the Chris Huhne thing, or Peter Mendelsohn, the former Blair advisor for getting a tax-free loan on and lying about it. You know, they get sort of kicked out sometimes so fast that they can come back after a period of time, after 2 years. So that I'm rather sort of shocked by the fact that when Hollande decided that he would react at lunch today, he said that anybody who's committed this kind of fraud should be barred from being elected their whole lives. I think, you know, we have plenty of laws according to which Monsieur Cahuzac is not going to be treated very nicely. We don't need to have something that will sort of ostracize people for the rest of their lives. I don't think we need to have a sort of communist Chinese penal code. We have plenty of laws. We just need to apply them. We don't need to have new ones.
There is a law, and for what he did, he could even do hard time.
He could do hard time, and once he's done hard time, or paid the fine, or done both, or whatever, then if people want to elect him again, the way they're quite ready to elect Bernard Tapie again, why not?
And when you listen to François Hollande's reaction, what's interesting is to know that he's proposing forbidding but not building. You know, what he just say, okay, we are going to forbid those people to be elected. But also, what could be judged a bit unfair, it's when you are reading, you know, the criticism from Le Monde saying he was incompetent, not to have known that Cahuzac had an offshore account. But as we don't have the means of checking, you know, and investigating on the minister, how could he have known? And somewhere you can say
so hang on a second. So what you're saying, to answer Thomas Guenole, is that both the politicians and the press in France are weak and don't do the vetting process.
The press is not weak because Mediapart, you know, they made a great job. So, and many journalists criticized them actually, and there was a debate on the method. But the result is here, you know, they were right, and they've been fighting during 4 months for, you know, being accepted.
But the tape was circulating among Cahuzac's local enemies in the region where he was elected for years. I cannot believe that Hollande wasn't aware of it. Well, or that the French president doesn't have the means to find out.
Maybe he wasn't aware, but you can't believe it. There's a debate, and now we have to know.
There's a third aspect of this, and one which I'm sure you know more about than the rest of us at this table, which is, of course, we've talked about the press, we've talked about the power of the politicians. There's also the judiciary in France, which has been accused in the past of being notoriously weak. 2 weeks ago, when former President Sarkozy was placed under formal investigation over alleged illegal financing for his 2007 run for president, the right accused the investigating magistrate of undertaking a political manhunt, a point the Prime Minister brought up this Wednesday when he spoke in Parliament.
Yes, I have doubts, just like others. But I have confidence in the justice system. And the prosecutor in this case made his decision without hindrance, without pressure. Not any more than was placed upon the press. We have moved on from certain past practices.
We have moved on from certain past practices, and an accusation leveled at the right for undertaking a witch hunt against the magistrate who is investigating Nicolas Sarkozy and his dealings with the L'Oréal heiress.
Well, I'm not going to defend the way the right attacked the judge, because let's leave them to it.
Because one of the things that's been said is, Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, is that Hollande took a back seat in this case because he didn't want to be seen to be tampering with the judiciary.
Well, this is, yes, at least that, that's how he's going to express it. But judges in France are not elected, they are civil servants. There are ways of making your wishes known without having to tamper sort of officially or even to do it. People know the climate. But on the case of Sarkozy, the judge found another accusation because there was a statute of limitation that had run out on the party finance thing. So he decided that Sarkozy had abused the weakness of Madame Bettencourt at a time when she was still married, and that the wife of a former Gaullist minister possibly had been abused when she allegedly gave money to a Gaullist party. I mean, that is, that's a joke.
Thomas Guenole?
What the judge, Mr. Gentil, did with in his accusation file in order to overcome the problem of the statute of limitation is extremely ugly. Period. That's and to even compare.
So you think it is a political crusade on the part of this magistrate?
I wouldn't say political. I would say I don't know how you say that in English. Corporatism.
Corporatism.
Oh, it's an easy one. Yeah. So I think it's judiciary corporatism. Sorry,
so the magistrate's getting back at Sarkozy because Sarkozy had tried to do a reform of the judiciary before.
Indeed, that's what I personally think. Yeah. And I've got, in French, indice grave et concordant to think so.
All right. Alexander Blumrosen?
Well, I think judges in France have quite a bit of power, and they are not scared to use it. This isn't recent. It wasn't in the last 2 weeks with Mr. Sarkozy that we've seen this. For the last 20 years, there has been a rise of power that the judges have.
The investigating magistrate.
The investigating magistrate. Eva Joly, looking into all sorts of financial crimes back in the 90s. Mr. Bruguière, who is on the Cahuzac case, is well known to all the press because he's been very active and he has resources and really doesn't take a back seat to the politicians. So
it goes back to 72 in Bruet and Artois, if you remember. That when a notary was accused, because he looked like he could be guilty, especially at the time where the country was very polarized left and right, and he accused a local notable of having committed a crime which eventually he was proven not to have committed. So this is back in 1972. I mean, there's a long tradition of the single investigative magistrate in France who's a character out of Balzac in so many ways. And when they hone onto someone, they can do practically what they want. It's very well known that Madame Joly, who now has a political career with the Greens and was a presidential candidate, used to put in jail, in remand, heads of companies, CEOs, of whom she knew perfectly well that they would not flee the country because she wanted to break them down.
The question of how the judiciary is going to handle all of this and whether or not it'll be independent of politicians is one aspect of it. Mediapart, that news website which broke the Cahuzac story, accuses Hollande's finance minister, by the way, Pierre Moscovici, of trying to cover up the affair.
François Hollande knew that everyone could find out, which is to say what we published, which was precise, rigorous and documented, could be reread on Mediapart. Pierre Moscovici did more. At the end of January, he exploited the fiscal administration to try and protect Mr. Cahuzac, and that's a breach of his position, because a judicial inquiry was underway.
Again, the ripple effects. Thomas Guenole, is the finance minister in trouble?
I think Moscovici is next, yeah. I don't see how we can get out of this. Just the words used by A.G. Plenel describe very precisely what the problem is. It's an abuse of power to make that kind of investigation as a minister, with the powers of a minister, while there is a judiciary process that is happening. So I don't know, because I don't have the expertise. I don't know if it's going to be something illegal, but politically speaking, in terms of the real trial for a politician is the trial in front of the public opinion, which is not based on law, it's based on mass hysteria. So I think mass hysteria judgment will make him have serious troubles, and maybe he will have to resign as well.
Mass hysteria against Moscovici. Aude Baron, do you agree, or do you think that the socialist government has handled the last 24 hours at least well, public relations-wise.
Well, when you listen to Edwy Plenel, you know, accusing, for the moment, you could say he doesn't have any proof, but you can say as a journalist, he wouldn't say this without any proof. And when you listen to Edwy Plenel, when you read the tweet you read at the beginning of the show, saying that Le Point tomorrow is going to publish, you know, some other evidence, saying maybe the government or Élysée François
New by the
Hollande.
end of December.
So you can say maybe we're going to see a domino party, you know. So now it's tomorrow it's going to be Pierre Moscovici, and who's next? And for the moment, maybe François Hollande, he can condemn Cahuzac and trying, you know, to save himself. But if we discover, you know, the whole government, and even at the Élysée, everyone knew it. I say if, because it has to be proven. But if it's so, it's going to be just huge, and it's going to be a state affair.
A state affair. It's not the crime that'll get you, it's the cover-up. Those were the words of Richard Nixon, who resigned as U.S. president over the Watergate scandal in 1974. To a much lesser extent, the French press also contributed to the downfall of one of their own presidents, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, whose secret gift of diamonds from the Central African Republic strongman tainted his tenure. Giscard voted out of office in 1981. Those were heads of state. Jérôme Cahuzac, a budget minister. It's a lower level, but do you see the rest of Hollande's tenure in office tainted by this affair? Can he rebound? He's got another 4 years.
He's got another 4 years, but I mean, he's already starting from a very bad point. He has the lowest ratings of any president of the Fifth Republic, actually the lowest rating of a president ever since they started taking ratings. So he's not starting in a very good position, and I think he overreacted in this, and it's not going to help him so much.
Overreacted over Cahuzac?
Yes, I think, I mean, he was saying it's betrayal, you say you keep on saying you keep to the attitude that you had before, saying, well, if he has admitted it and I'll leave the judge to say it, but this smacks of hysteria, of somebody who's trying to distance himself from Cahuzac as if Cahuzac were radioactive. But that's not cool. I mean, this is not somebody who's got the distance that you would hope the president to have. So in that case, I don't think they're going to do very well on this one.
An ominous prediction there from Anne-Elisabeth Moutet. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank Thomas Guenole, Alexander Blumrosen, and Aude Baron. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 today.